Today guys, I got a really cool racket in the house. This is the Volkl C10 EVO, and I'm going to tell you guys why this is an absolute hidden gem on the market for quite a large group of players. All right guys, so here it is, the Volkl C10 EVO. Now, don't leave this video. I know a lot of the times when we're talking about these rackets brands that are a little bit non-mainstream, not Wilson, not Head, not Babolat, maybe not Yonex, but everything else, it's kind of like you don't care about it. But I'm here to tell you, but this is a racket you should care about. Volkl makes good rackets. They are not paying me to make this video. In fact, an old coach of mine actually gave me this racket to talk about today. And Volkl is in a very interesting place right now. They don't have a lot of players endorsing their rackets, or if they do, they're lower ranked. They're not inside the top 20 or anything. But they used to have some great pros using their rackets through the 90s and the early 2000s. And then they kind of lost their way a little bit. But the C10 series is a racket that has been being made the exact same for over 25 years. And now they've come out with this EVO version that is a little bit lighter. I believe the regular C10 Pro is 330, and this one is 310, okay? So just a little rundown on Volkl and this C10 EVO. Now before I really get into it, I was pleasantly surprised with this. Feeling it in hand is kind of like no other. The beam is extremely thin. This is 20 millimeters throughout, all right? It's 20 all around, 20, 20, 20. This is Volkl Cyclone in here as well. Went full Volkl for this racket. We got a Torna grip on here as well, 4 1/4. Normally I play with 4 3/8, but for this demo I only got 4 1/4. But let me just say this, I was so surprised with this racket. I didn't know how it would play. It feels so different compared to any other rackets just because the beam is so thin. And the first thing I thought was, hey, this is not gonna be stable at all. Thin beam equals really flexy and maybe no feel, no stability on hard balls and defending, and I was wrong. But let's really jump into what I think about all of the categories that we normally talk about now. All right, so let's talk about the Groundstrokes. This is a 98 square inch 16 by 19 frame, and from the back, it moves through the air very smooth. It feels light in your hands. I did not customize this with any lead. If I had to play with this racket, I would probably throw some up here at 10 and 2 or 3 and 9, just because I feel like it would increase the stability a tiny bit for off-center hits, and I'll touch on that a little bit. But the Groundstrokes overall, racket moves very good through the air. For a racket that has DNA that is over 25 years old, the launch angle is very good. Very, very good. It's flying nice over the net. You can really pick and choose what kind of window you want to put your forehand or backhand through. If you're someone that wants to play, a little bit more flat, tighter spin, lower over the net, you're going to really like this one because I think that's really what it's made for. However, if you want to throw the spinny, deep window 2-3 ball with your forehand or backhand, you're not going to really have a problem with it. I don't think it's made for that. I mean, maybe you want to use this racket instead, a pure arrow, if that's what you're doing all the time. But overall, pleasantly surprised, no major issues. I would say the only minor knock I would have is just on off-center hits. You can feel the thin beam a little bit, but it's not horrible. I've felt a lot worse, let's just say that. So that's one small thing, but the maneuverability of this racket on the Groundstrokes is really, really good. So we can talk about that when we get to that category as well. But forehands and backhands, you can hit flat, you can hit spin. It's very solid considering what you're getting, okay? So on the Groundstrokes, we are going to go with an 8 out of 10. All right, now up to the net. Now, of course, maybe you're thinking this is where this racket is going to shine, and it did. Up at the net, you're volleying, and it's a joke, all right? This is also a nice racket, I think, to coach and to teach with if you're feeding a lot of balls. It just feels really nice. Somebody can blast a ball to you up at the net, and this just takes it like so nicely. You can put the ball right back deep up at the ball if you want to put a little spin on it, a little drop volley action. This racket is going to allow you to do that too, which is really nice. Is it perfect, perfect, perfect? It's really close, but I am not going to give it a 10 out of 10 just because even though it does feel amazing, maybe it could buckle. It could, especially if you catch a volley up here or on the side. That's the one thing about the 20mm beam. It feels great up at the net, but there is that chance that it can buckle. It didn't happen much to me, but there is that. And that's why I think if you can handle it, you should throw a little bit of lead here, increase that stability a bit, but it's nearly perfect. I'm gonna go 9 out of 10 here up at the net. Serves, okay, very interesting here. Felt like I was able to hit my spots well, all right? I can hit the flat serve pretty decent. I can slice, I can kick, but it's reminded me of some other control frames I've played with in the past. I never reviewed the PT57A, and I'm not saying that's like super similar or anything, I'm just using that as a reference point. But on the serve with that racket's much heavier than this, but I had the same sensation with this racket on the serve. I wasn't really able to get a lot out of it. All right, once again, 20mm beam. I have a full bed of poly in here. There's not a lot of mass coming through the air, right? It is 310, that's kind of middle of the line, then you string it, so you do get the weight from there, but it's not like you got a thick beam, or down here it's quite thin as well. I got a 4 1/4 grip. I don't have much going for me if I want to bomb serve. It really has to come from within the player to generate everything, and I noticed that. So if you're looking to hit big booming aces with this racket, I would look somewhere else. However, if you're really strong, you got great technique, you want control, you can hit your spots, you will really like this. You're a little bit more old-fashioned, maybe you like to play a little serve and volley, slice in the body, come in, like you're not really power-oriented, you will like this, or you might also like the C10 Pro as well. But this is it's a good one on serve, but it's not excellent. I wouldn't say it's the best serving racket for me, so we're gonna go 7 out of 10 on this one. All right, returns. You know what? Surprised me actually on this one, because I did have that inside thought up at the net about stability that may hinder my return, but this handled returns pretty well. I stuck the racket there, I blocked it, it went back nicely. I can't really complain. Same on like a backhand chip slice, that felt really nice with this as well. Same on the forehand. This racket is very maneuverable when it's out in front of your body. I can really appreciate what they've done here. I think it is because of how thin the beam is. It just moves through the air like a magic wand. I do think if you're playing someone that's ripping serves 125 and above, then the racket might not feel so great, but for most players, you're not gonna be feeling that, so I'm not gonna really factor that into the equation for this score on the return, but I really liked it. Is it the best ever? No, but it's definitely above average, so we're gonna go 8 out of 10 for the returns. Now to power. This is not a power racket. We've kind of touched on this. It is not a pure arrow, it is not a pure drive. You're gonna get more power pretty much of any other racket you play with, so be aware of that. That's not to say an intermediate player can't use this racket, or someone that is of that level, but it does give you a tiny bit, but you really need to work for it, all right? So you gotta generate your own racket head speed. You need to know how to hit a tennis ball to play with this. If you do know how to do all those things, it's not gonna feel like a lot of work, but since we gotta compare to everything else that's currently out there, like a Radical would have more power than this in my eyes, or an Extreme Pro would have more power than this in my eyes. So it's gonna get a lower score, but I know that, and that's okay. And just know this is not a make or break score for this racket, but I believe it's like a 5 out of 10. 10 being so much power, 0 being it's not coming off the strings at all. You know what I mean? So you're getting something, but it's not a lot. You really got to work for it. Think about it like a Prestige, right? You're not going to get a lot from a Prestige frame. All right, but it will get a high score on control, okay? So this is what this racket is for. This is what this whole line is for, the C10 Pro Original. It's been around for a long time. I've mentioned that. It's amazing, all right? It's a point and shoot, okay? It's pinpoint precision. It's like a pro staff and blade, but kind of better. It's got a nice blend actually of like blade, pro staff, prestige. It's kind of like all in one there. It has a feeling of kind of all of those a little together. I'm not saying it's necessarily better than any of those. I'm just kind of using those as reference points, but that's going to be a similar vibe you're going to get out of this racket. You want to play up the line, it will go up the line, all right? You want to play a short drop shot, it's going to go there. Once again, if you're coaching with this racket, you feed the ball, it goes exactly where you want it. So the control on this is really nice. Got to give it actually a 10 out of 10. I really like it on the control for sure. Maneuverability. stability. I have been talking about that a little bit throughout this video thus far, and I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it kind of feels like a magic wand. It moves through the air very easily and freely. It feels light, but it's really not. I think, once again, it's just because of this beam. If I had a pure arrow and it weighed the same as this racket, but it's a completely different type of frame to move through the air. You know, you get the aerodynamic beam in the throat for those rackets. The beam is super thick in the hoop, so it's a very much different racket. This one feels very nice moving through the air. It's easy to move up the net, great for doubles too. So really love it there. Gotta give it actually a 10 out of 10. One of the better rackets I've felt for maneuverability, especially also for grip changes as well. It was super easy. Stability. Now this is the one category that surprised me, but it still can be an issue with this racket. For off-center hits, you will notice this. If you're playing a little bit of a higher level, you don't have any weight on this, you will notice it when you have off-center hits. It doesn't mean the ball that's being produced is bad, it just means that it's not as good and doesn't feel as good when it's making contact. You know, racket technology has gotten so good that we sometimes can't even notice now when the ball's a little outside of the sweet spot on a racket. This racket you will be able to tell because, once again, the DNA on these frames, the C10s, are older. So you're gonna find out real quick if you're hitting the middle or not. So if you also want to use this racket for like a little bit of a training aid as well, to really have feel, maybe something this would work really well. But overall stability here, what we're talking about, it was good, but it's not great. I'm gonna say like a 7 out of 10. Considering what you're getting, it's good, but comparing to everything else on the market, not amazing, if you know what I mean. So definitely something I can work with, and I think it could change as well if you smacked some lead on here and really customized it. But compared to some of the other options out there, like for example, my Wilson blade right now feels bread and butter up at the net. I never have any issues. This one would feel a little bit more unstable up at the net compared to the blade, even though it still feels good. Now to comfort. Now this is where Volkl rackets are really, really good. All right, this is what they're meant for. They're meant for people who have arm, wrist, and shoulder pain. Their rackets are filled with silicone, apparently, in the butt. You can see that right here. Okay, so if you're someone that has issues with your arm, your shoulder, you know, you're struggling, you're hurting, Volkl rackets in general will be good for you. The C10 series, though, I'm not convinced, okay? These rackets, even though they are easy to maneuver, a 20mm beam with a full bed of poly strung higher than 53 or 54, I think could give you issues, okay? I actually felt my arm a tiny bit, but I think that's because I was swinging this racket so fast and hard when I did get out and play with it that you have to swing so hard really with this racket for it to produce, because it's not giving you a lot, right? It's a control frame. And that could be the frame and me swinging. If you're a club player and you're just kind of hitting this back and forth, you will not get pain from it. They've designed their rackets so you don't get pain, right? The silicone here and all these other new rackets that they've made, I haven't been lucky to test them, but I've heard they're very, very good. So just Volkl in general, good for comfort. But on the C10 series, this EVO 2, I would be a little cautious. So maybe you, especially if you're swinging hard. If you're not swinging hard, it's a little different. But if you're a high level player, you put a full bed of poly in here and you don't have any added weight, you might want to be careful because there still can be vibrations that are sent into your arm. And I did feel that sometimes, which is actually interesting. Anyway, not gonna get a horrible score here. I'm gonna put it at a 6.5 out of 10, just because this was my experience and this is how I play. Once again, I'm swinging fast. I'm trying to accelerate on the ball. And since there's not a lot of mass right here, it's gonna send something into my arm. It's for sure, right? It's not a thick beam. There's not a lot of mass that's coming behind the ball. It's all coming from me. So keep that into mind. It could be a different score for somebody else, right? So 6.5 out of 10 for the comfort for me. Touch and feel, it's gonna get a great score on here. I loved hitting slice. I loved coming up to the net. Little chip shots, once again, good coaching racket. It feels really nice to go give a lesson with this, feeding out of the basket. Great touch and feel. Gonna put her at an 8.5 out of 10. Topspin. A lot of people might think this is not gonna get a great score here, but it will. It did better than I thought once again, it ain't pure aero level topspin, but it's definitely better than some control frames that are out there. I think it's better than the Prestige for topspin. The launch angle, you will be surprised. And that's what the guy who gave me this racket, big thanks to Marky, by the way, if he's gonna watch this video. When he gave me this racket, he said, Cade, you're gonna be surprised with the launch angle. And I was, all right? This racket does have a launch angle. And I think that's kind of cool for a control frame. A lot of the time, they're so low. You gotta play flatter, you gotta play tighter spin, window one, and that's kind of like not for everyone, you know? So happy with how it was, not spectacular. 7 out of 10 for the topspin. And last but not least, we got the slice. It's gonna perform well. Given everything I've talked about, it performs well on touch and feel, it performs well up at the net, so it's gonna perform well on the slice. That's generally how things work with these type of frames. Very maneuverable, slice and dice. It was very nice. All right, you can hit the knifing slices, you can hit them short, you can hit them deep, throw in a drop shot. Very connected on this racket, a lot of control, okay? So felt really good. Gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10 on that. And yeah, guys, this is the C10 EVO, okay? If you wanna pick it up, I don't know if I have any affiliate links with anywhere selling this racket right now, but you know what? Just give me a like, give me a subscribe, comment down below if you've used this racket. And yeah, it's really cool. I'm really happy I got my hands on this. These are rackets that, at least in the EVO, have been around. The DNA has been around for a long time. The C10 has been around for over 25 years. So it's kind of like a collectible item in a way. They just keep coming out with new paint jobs basically for the C10 regular. And once again, this is the EVO. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We got lots of videos coming out here in the next couple months. So make sure you're on the lookout. This is the C10 EVO. We'll catch you guys in the next video.